Hey everyone, I'm your host, Emily Lauren. Welcome to the Body Positive Podcast, where we ditch diets, normalize real bodies, and help you feel better in your own skin. Welcome everyone to the Body Positive Show. We have Charlotte Oxnam with us today to talk about how clothing choices affect our confidence. Charlotte is the founder of Cue the Curves, which is a social community app for plus size fashion. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me, how does clothing affect our body image?
I think it really comes down to how we express ourselves, and clothing is that daily choice we get to make about how we want the world to see us when we walk outside. Do we want to be bold with colors? Do we want to go more muted? I mean, we think about how style is put into categories of business casual, streetwear. There's a vibe you give off based off of what clothing you're wearing, and that can really affect your self-confidence and how you feel in those clothes. And Cue the Curves is all about giving plus size women as many of those options as straight size women by helping them find clothing that's usually limited to them because of the way fashion treats plus size women.
That's amazing. So how has clothing personally impacted your relationship with your own body?
I think it impacted me a lot. I grew up in a school that had uniforms, and it was always a very hard feeling, I think, to dress like everyone else, but to feel like I looked like everyone else. And then going into high school and college now, where I can really control what I wear, it can take me from a really bad mood to a really great one. If I put on a great outfit and I get a couple compliments walking down the street, it can really turn things around for me, and I think it really also helped me define for myself how I wanted to be seen by the world, and it gave me a control over my image that was really reassuring and really built confidence.
I love that take on that. So tell me a little bit more about how your app works.
Yeah, so Cue the Curves is all community based. So we're testing out a ton of new and different features right now. So even by the time this podcast airs, I'm sure there'll be extra features than what I'm talking about now. But at our core, we are forum based. So when you go into the app, you can either click on different styles or brands and just join a conversation around these brands. Our goal is to hopefully allow women to feel empowered to try out more brands because they're hearing people's ideas and opinions on the clothing and feel more confident buying from them, or to try out new styles because someone's saying, "Oh, well, this brand you should try if you want to try this new style." So we're really trying to build a safe space and a community that's really plus size specific, because I found that my biggest difficulty was I would go onto these sites that I'd never heard of and I'd read the reviews, but all the reviews were from the perspective of straight size people.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who's plus size, I intrinsically know that many brands' straight size clothing can be great, but their plus size clothing really not great. And it felt like I was getting all of this information about brands but not actually knowing how they would fit me and if I would like them. So I wanted to have a community of just plus size women, so when you enter the app, you never have to worry about, well, is this brand going to fit me? Well, is this clothing different for straight size versus plus size? It's purely an experience that you can connect with, and all of those barriers are taken down.
I think that's amazing. You're doing incredible things.
Thank
So I
you.
feel like you're welcome. So I feel like there's so many different definitions for what is actually considered plus size. I've heard everything from a size 12 to a size 18. What do you consider plus size?
I consider plus size, when I typically think about it in my head, I start at 14 just because I feel like a lot of brands, even on the smaller boutique side, go up to a large, which is typically a 10 to a 12.
Mm-hmm.
But I think more generally, plus size can be anyone who feels like they can't shop in the quote unquote regular section of a store, or they can't know going into any store that that store is going to carry their size. So if you're someone who lives in an area that maybe has more options, maybe you wouldn't consider yourself plus size until you're a size 18. If you live in an area like I do with very few options, maybe you consider yourself part of the plus size community at a smaller size. Um, but to me, that size 10 to size 12 range is typically the cutoff because that's when we see stores
Mhm.
starting to stop carrying clothes above that size.
Yeah, that's good to know. So I've recently been hearing a lot of discussion regarding this new term called midsize, which refers to those bodies that are sort of that 10, 12, maybe to the 18 range.
Mhm.
What's your take on that? Do you think there's anything wrong with that term? I mean, you were sort of stating that that could almost be considered plus size because of the way brands are set up and structured. How do you feel about that term?
Yeah, I think that term has been used in some complicated ways, so I go back and forth on it. I think it's great if a term helps you find a community and helps you feel less alone, especially in an industry as intense and as sometimes demeaning as the fashion industry in
Mhm.
general. Um then I think it's great. I'm like, you found your people, you found some maybe creators who can help you find clothes you love. That's awesome. I do agree with some of the discourse around the fact that midsize, using the term midsize, feels like people are trying to shy away from words like fat and
Mhm.
small fat, which is a term been used for a similar size range for a long time. And it does sort of have this connotation of, well, we don't want to be associated as like big, we're just sort of in the middle. Um, so when it's used in a way to sort of alienate people who are fat and to sort of shame that word, I really don't appreciate it. I also have problems with it when people who quote unquote are mid-size have started to talk about things and say things like, oh well, like plus size people have had their moment, but it's mid-size's moment to shine.
Mhm.
um I find that really problematic because I think it really ignores the fact that for a lot of quote unquote mid-sized people, they are able to go into many stores and find clothing in their size. And I like to describe it as, for every single person, mid-size, plus size, straight size, can have personal issues with your body. You cannot feel great in the clothes you're wearing. You can be insecure. That's something society has pushed on us, and it is the worst, and it sucks. But when it comes to being mid-size, that typically means you can go into a store and try on a skirt and not like how it looks on you.
Mhm.
As
You
a
still have
plus
that
size
privilege.
person, I can't go into that store and try on that skirt in the first place. And that's sort
Yes.
of the key fundamental difference. I'm fighting for my ability to try on the skirt and then maybe like it or maybe not like it.
Yeah,
Mid-sized people are
absolutely.
going through this experience of like, oh, well, clothes don't look good on my body or I feel insecure, which I completely sympathize with, but isn't the core systematic issue we're trying to take on. And so when they try to take up a lot of space in the body positivity movement to have this discussion, I feel like they're really doing a disservice to plus size people. And that I have a huge problem with.
I think that's such a great way of putting it, and I like that you kind of stated that, if you're using it to identify with a community or look for clothing in a certain range, it's okay, but if you're looking to separate yourself from, use that size privilege that you still have even though you're not skinny, but you're still not considered in that area where people are discriminated against and don't have
Yeah.
the same access, that it's problematic. So let's talk a little bit more about sizing. I have clothes that literally range between like 5 different sizes. What should people focus on instead of the number when searching for clothes that fit?
I am always a fan of just knowing your measurements. I have
Hmm.
them written on a little sticky note on my desk, and I take them maybe once every 3 to 6 months, and I just always check size charts religiously. Because at the end of the day, the number on the tag really doesn't matter. How the clothes fit you and how the clothes make you feel matter. So knowing your own personal sizes can help a ton. And I think the other piece of advice I would have is to just read reviews, because you'll see in the reviews, people will say things like, I'm a size 16, but normally, but in this brand, I had to go up to a 20, or in this
Mhm.
brand, I went down to a 14. Um, People are willing to share that information if you just go searching for it. And that's one of the things we're really trying to do with Cue the Curves, is to create that sort of network. Um, but yeah,
I
I would say at the end of the day, knowing your own measurements, because what a size 16 is store to store can be different, but they all of them have size charts, all of them have what the measurements that correspond to their size 16 is, or whatever size you are, and just go off of those.
Smart thinking. I actually really like too the websites that are now starting to let people post reviews and also images of them in that, but also include
Yeah.
sort of their general sizing or measurements, because I find that sometimes visually you can see what it will look like on a body like yours or similar to yours, and I
Mhm.
find that really can be helpful as well. What do you consider to be a good size range for a company that classifies themselves as being size inclusive?
I think if you want to have the badge of size inclusivity, I think at an absolute minimum, you should go to a size 26.
Mhm.
Um, Beyond that, I think is like you should, and then you should actively be working to expand your size range from there. I think part of the conversation around making brands more size inclusive has been, well, brands can't take on that much inventory until they know what shoppers are going to come. And I completely respect that. I understand, especially smaller brands, that the difference between carrying 6 sizes and 12 sizes is a lot when you're a small brand. But I think if you want to be shown as a size inclusive brand, you should from a minimum go to a size 26, and then you should be actively communicating with your customers how you are going to continue to increase your size range.
I like that. I think that's a really good point. And there's been so many companies out there that, adopt the body positive or the size inclusive tag, but really don't show that. And I think that's really problematic because,
Yeah.
it's just we want to see the actual progress, and we want to see actual people in those advertisements.
I think
So
Aerie is such a great example of that.
yes.
A
Hmm.
brand that I feel like everywhere I go, people are talking about how body positive they are.
Hmm.
And their jeans, I think, go up to a size 28, but they run so small that I don't really consider that a size 28.
No, yeah.
Everything else goes up to a 2XL is there in clothing. And even then it's a much more limited inventory. And I'm like,
Wow.
how is this the brand that we've allowed to become the face of body positivity?
That's a really good point because, I think of them as being one of the leaders in terms of, you see ads with different body types and things like that. And I think we often forget that we need to incorporate more sizes. And there are so many different body types out there, not just the 2XLs.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a really good point. So, what would you say to someone who thinks that they don't have the body to wear a certain style or outfit?
I think that, and pardon my French, that approach is bullshit. Um, I am of the belief that you should wear what makes you feel the best. And I will say it that way because I completely understand that is certain clothing that you will feel uncomfortable in for whatever reason. And you shouldn't force yourself into clothing that doesn't make you feel amazing just for the sake of, oh, well, I can wear anything I want. You can, but you should wear what makes you feel good. If you don't feel comfortable in a crop top, don't wear a crop top. Um, but if you feel amazing in a crop top, wear it regardless of your size. Do wear what you want. Because at the end of the day, an outfit is maybe 60% of the work, but the last 40% is how confident you feel in that outfit.
Hmm.
And I have seen 2 women in the exact same outfit, and one looks like $1,000,000 and one looks like she just wants to crawl in a hole because she
Yeah.
doesn't feel great in that outfit and the other girl does. So, At the end of the day, it's not about what your body shape is, what the size on the tag is, about any of that. It's about how you feel when you walk out in that outfit. And that's the metric I think you should follow.
That's amazing. I love that. I like to preach that too, that like if you're comfortable wearing something, you're going to feel comfortable in your body. And I think it's so important, and that's why we need to take the focus off of the number too, because, it doesn't matter what size it is. If you feel good in it, then you're going to rock it. So
100%.
I know the hardest part for me with online shopping is when the models on wearing the clothes don't look like me or don't have the same body as me. And I can get really disappointed when I get something home to try it on. How important do you think it is to have a variety of body types in modeling? And like, what are some of the things that we can do to sort of push that in the right direction? Like, we want to see real bodies.
I think so. Two things. To answer the first part of your question, I think it is super important. I think for a lot of brands, and brands haven't quite realized this, it's the difference between shoppers pressing buy and not. I can think of instance after instance after instance of people being like, I would go buy that dress, but I have no clue how it would look on me.
Mhm.
So I think communicating that to brands more and letting them know that the difference isn't just, oh, you're going to appear more body positive, you're going to have more customers because people are going to trust that the clothing will actually fit them the way they think it will.
Yeah,
Um
I
and
don't get I don't get why brands don't realize this because it's profitable, right? Like
100%.
we like body sizes are so diverse. There's only 5% of women have the body that we see in the media. So we all need to wear clothes and it would be profitable for them if they invested in this. And I don't understand what they're trying to uphold when they aren't more inclusive in terms of both advertising and what they have to offer as a brand.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from you look at the leadership of a lot of these big brands and they are older white men. And so they're
Mhm.
not approaching it from the experience of shopping as a woman, but from selling as an image and making themselves seem desirable, and they're using all of these very antiquated approaches to like how to sell your brand, because they haven't had the experience that we as women have of shopping for clothing. So I think there's definitely a disconnect there that's happening.
We
But
need more
I
women in these positions then, right?
100%. And one of the ways that we can help push that change, I believe, is by starting to, put our money where our mouth is now and support the brands that are doing it right. Because there are brands out there that let you shop by model that show lots of different body types. I think of Girlfriend Collective. I think of, and while I think it could do a better job, Good American shows you a model in 4 different sizes and you can click the model size. Um and if we start supporting these brands that are doing that and take our money away from the brands that are not serving us well as customers, then we're going to start to see actual change. But what's happened now is that these brands, especially brands that are the ones that typically serve plus size customers on like larger scales, think of Forever 21 and the likes, they have become so complacent because plus size shoppers feel like they have nowhere else to go,
Mhm.
that they're making so much money they don't feel the need to change because they know that plus size shoppers will come to them regardless because they feel like they have no choices. So one of my core goals with Q the Curves and as a founder in the plus size fashion space is to really expose the brands who are doing it right and give them a chance to be shopped from instead. And hopefully, when that shift of money happens and when that shift of interest happens, these other larger brands will realize, like, oh, shoot, we need to catch up. We need to actually innovate and serve our customers well versus just being complacent because we're the only one they know to go to.
I think that's so important. And I think it's also really important to recognize too that the cost of clothing also affects that from changing, because I find like it's cheaper to buy from brands that aren't necessarily supportive, or size inclusive. So it's sometimes hard, right? Because a lot of
Definitely.
these companies that are making the effort are more expensive, and there's a reason behind that. But so the point I'm trying to make is that we have to support them where we can, right?
Yes,
But also not feel guilty.
1000%.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about Old Navy right now, and they
Yes.
sort of have tried to do this with showing a size 4 and a size 12, but then they have separate plus size options, and all the models are just wearing a size 1X. Do you think it's important that there be a separate section for plus sizes, or would you like to see brands keep everything together?
I like the idea. I have sort of two approaches to this. One, I like the idea of everything being together on the floor of a store. I think it's great when you offer the same item through a whole size range, not separated into straight size and plus size, with the caveat that brands still need to think through in the manufacturing size side that manufacturing a plus size garment, typically you can't just, add inches on every side from your extra small size design.
Hmm.
So I am okay with there being to some degree a separate plus size section if it means that the plus size clothing is going to fit my body better than just becoming these massive boxes that I find some brands that just try to blast straight through extra small up to a 4X end
Hmm.
up doing to their plus size customers. Um, but I think from a shopping experience, especially in person, having having it all be in one space is super important and huge. I mean, it feels really demoralizing to be sent to the back corner while all of your
Hmm.
friends are shopping everywhere else in the store. But at the end of the day, I think
Hmm.
the biggest part of it to me is that any garment you offer in a straight size, you should offer in a plus size, even if there are slight differences in how maybe the measurements are affected in the proportions. Um, I
Hmm.
don't want all of my friends to be able to buy the same dress and I can't buy it. That's a really hard experience. So it's a really nuanced situation that doesn't really have a one size fits all approach of just saying, well, put them all together, wash our hands
Of
of it, and be
course.
done. Um, but
Hmm.
I definitely think it can be better than what we currently have.
I agree. So, how can straight size women be allies or advocates for their plus size friends?
My biggest, so on a personal scale, I think just educating yourself. Educating yourself as to what
Hmm.
brands are carry plus sizes and if they carry plus sizes in store versus online, coming in with that knowledge and then using it, say when you're going out shopping with your friends. I've shared an experience before of how one of my best friends in the world did her research ahead of time. We were in the mall one day and she took me into Torrid. And I was like, "You don't shop at Torrid. Nothing in here will fit you." And she was like, "Yeah, but you do. And I want you to look at clothes today too." And that was such a profound experience for me because it was the first time I felt like I wasn't the one putting in all the work to make sure I was included. Someone else was
Hmm.
making sure I was included as well. And so it's little actions like those, making sure that you're not just spending all day shopping for clothes in a way that your friends can't participate and can't look for clothes themselves. And then on a larger just as an ally to the plus size community scale, trying to support when you can brands that are size inclusive that do have plus size lines and not support brands that are historically anti plus size or refuse to expand their size range can go a long way to really helping your plus size friends feel supported.
Great advice. So, what would you say to anyone struggling with negative body image? What is your advice?
My advice is to take it one day at a time. You're not going to wake up and love yourself tomorrow if you're struggling with yourself today, and that's okay. It happens in the little moments. So watch how you're describing yourself to yourself, watch the words you're using, and really try to give yourself grace and respect your body for all it's done for you. Um, I like to think of the term body neutrality has really been growing recently. And I like to think of that as like a much more achievable mid step to body positivity. So, maybe by
Mhm.
tomorrow, you don't have to love the things that you're not feeling great about today, but just be okay with them. Sort of have a neutral stance and keep working forward. And then on top of that, as I said in the beginning, I really think it all comes back down to clothes as being such a big way of how we see ourselves and how we see our bodies. So make sure you're wearing things that you feel great in. I purposefully, on days that I'm not feeling great about my body, wear the most extra outfits that are the clothes that I love and I feel amazing in. And all of my friends are like, Charlotte, why are you this dressed up for just a normal day of life? But it is amazing how much, some good makeup, your hair done, and a dress you feel great in can change your entire attitude. Um, and so
I love
just
that.
just taking those little moments to to do everything you can to make yourself feel great, you'll be amazed at how quickly it catches up.
I love all of that. That's such great advice. Please tell our listeners how they can find out about your app and where we
Of
can find you
course, yeah. So
online.
we are on Instagram and TikTok at Cue the Curves. And then if you head to cuethecurves.com, it'll let you know how to download the app to your phone, and then you'll be all set.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us today. It was so great to hear your perspective.
It was so great to chat.
Thank you. Once again, thanks for listening to today's episode. Make sure you follow us at Real Happy Daughter, and please share this with someone who needs a little more real in their life.